What's up, Squadron 7? Welcome to the very first episode of a new podcast dedicated to celebrating all things Star Wars, where we will be talking about all the news from the galaxy far, far away, as well as covering all the Disney Plus series as they are released. This is Dyad in the Force. Welcome, one and all, to Dyad in the Force. I'm your host, Element 7, along with my Dyad and co-host, Darth Choco. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? I'm excited for this first episode. Let's do it.
Absolutely, yes. This is the maiden voyage. We've been talking about doing this for a while now, covering, current topics. I know you have, which I'm a big fan of, the High Ground podcast that covers all kinds of subjects from the movies and balance in the Force, which I was, honored to be a part of, which actually inspired me to start this podcast. So I'm grateful for your for your inspiration.
Nice. Yeah, it's I mean, obviously over there is, like you said, it's all random topics. I've been looking forward to getting in and talking about things that are happening right now, so this is cool. I'm excited to be talking about modern current events.
Absolutely. So you were talking just briefly about having just built your computer again, it just crashed all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean I blew the motherboard. I was doing too many things. I was helping someone host a game night for my family, but I also had Premiere Pro up and running, and I was rendering something, and I basically had 1,000 things open at the same time. Ooh. It just shut off on me. Pretty sure I heated it up too much, probably unsoldered a few things. I don't know, but it died.
So now you have a new build. How's that working out so far?
So much better. Oh, so man.
How is Sator running?
Oh, it is. I mean, it doesn't even shutter or just max out everything. It's not like it's a intensive program. But yeah, first thing I did is start downloading modern games that I don't even plan to play, just to make sure that they run. But yeah, I'm happy to get back into the Old Republic as well.
Yeah, I played Sator and then I stopped playing for a while. And that's when I had my old 960, which is still on my shelf back there. But when I got my new graphics card and I came back maybe 2 months ago just to see what was happening, I realized there was a subtle graphical update to Sator, and it was primarily in the social hub. A lot of lighting effects were upgraded, and I don't know if you've noticed it since you've gone back into it, but the what is the social hub called? I forget. That circular.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But a lot of the lights, a lot of the billboards and the signs, the neon signs have this luminance and glow, and you can see the when neon signs give off some sort of gas.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, mostly because I was just replaying what's it called, Infamous Second Son.
Oh yeah.
And I just got my neon powers, so yeah, know lots about neon right now.
Speaking of Infamous, the PS5 is something to come out soon. Have you had your pre-order?
Haven't pre-ordered one yet. Just built this computer, and when I watched the PS5 showcase, I was seeing other games that they were talking about coming out, and nothing struck me. You know what I mean? Nothing gripped me. There's quite a lot of things that are coming out, but most of the ones that I'm interested in are cross-platform. Absolutely. Or are also coming to PS4, which I already have. So I've just built up this computer. There's a lot of games that I've missed because they're PC releases. So I figure I'll stick with this for the time being.
Squadrons?
Oh, I do have Squadrons on PS4. And haven't beaten it yet. I was debating whether or not to go into VR before really doubling down on it. So
Admittedly, I haven't played much of it, and I'm saddened by that fact. It's unfortunate, but you know,
being in this cockpit right now, it's making me look bad.
I mean, it looks like you're actually in it, which is pretty cool. You're not using your targeting computer right now.
No. I trust in the Force.
Absolutely. But in any case, let's dive into our first topic of the podcast, which is, of course, the High Republic. We're going to be talking about this a little bit like in overall sense, but over the holiday weekend, particularly Halloween, we got this interesting morsel of info from StarWars.com about the villains of the High Republic. And I'm going to read, I have the article open right now. I'm going to read what they wrote. One of the North Stars for this initiative is to answer the question, what scares the Jedi? And so as the Jedi struggle to deal with, and I'll put this article on the screen so you guys can read along, is the aftermath of the Great Disaster, a new creeping terror rises from the ground beneath their feet. The Drengr are sentient plant life who are looking to reap a terrible harvest across the galaxy frontier, or the galactic frontier. Vegetation-based villains. Have you had a chance to look at these concept art?
Oh yeah. I've been checking it out, and I think it looks dope. Again, this is new territory. You know what I mean? As you know, I'm a big fan of the expanded universe, and even through that, there's nothing like this. You know, it's uncharted and untamed.
Yeah,
we'll see some Jedi's with
new species, even like going back into the timeline. Like we're still being introduced to new stuff. I mean, I got a lot of comments in my video about this that it like screams Abeloth mixed with, like, I forget what they said, but like I kind of see where they're coming from. Like it does have kind of like that terrifying look that Abeloth would give out, but I'm trying to figure out what the scale is of this.
That's a good question.
Particular concept art, you know, like
if it's like 1.5 feet tall,
if it's like a small little lilac or a dandelion,
but there's a lot of them.
Yeah, but that would be equally creepy, right? And of course, when I read that this was like plant life and vegetation, I also had like some thoughts that perhaps these things, you know, given you have to be a threat to the Jedi in some way, shape, or form, could these plant-like villains, or the Drengr, be Force sensitive? Could they pose a threat in the Force, whereas when the Jedi fight them, they're doing like vine lashes and, like, you know, binding them with their tentacles? It's like, what if they use the Force too?
That is an interesting thought that I literally did not consider at all. But I mean, the Force runs through everything living, right? So it has to be possible. I was mostly assuming that we'd see a lot of grass type Pokemon moves. Drengar used Vine Whip. No, but I would love to see that, because that would also, I mean, potentially, if it could even be that the Force is what's giving them the sentience, and
right,
that could also make them drawn to the Jedi, or maybe they're seeding the universe headed towards the temple because that's showing up as a beacon in the Force. There's a lot of interesting like ramifications possibly from that.
Absolutely. I mean, in general, we haven't seen very much use of the Force from like non-bipedal type of species in the Star Wars universe, especially in canon. So when we talk about, or when we think about how the Drengar could be a threat to the Jedi, it's like, I'm trying to think about how, like, what kind of Force techniques they would use as, like, vegetation. Like it's like you said with like the Pokemon being like a plant-based attacks and stuff. Like, will we see more force techniques or abilities that centered around Earth like concepts, like a quake, like a force quake, and like a force bind, where it's not part of their tentacles, but they're kind of like doing this druid-esque type of ability where all of the plants and vegetation and foliage around their enemy will bind them. It's interesting to think about how the Jedi will fight this foe, and if this foe is actually force sensitive, because I know we're like speculating a lot about if it's force sensitive. Now, if it's not force sensitive, what do you think, like what kind of threat could they pose to Jedi beyond the force? Jedi who are wielding the lightsabers that cut through things.
Well, I mean, it's not. I have little doubt that a lightsaber is going to be able to make short work of them. However, what is that going to mean? I mean, we could end up in a Fantasia type of situation where you chop it in half, and now there's two of them.
Yeah.
That's just one possibility. But another concept I like is because this may be the first time that we see the Jedi really have to question what their role is. You know what I mean? This is a sentient creature, but we don't know if it's smart or and we don't know if it is capable of having malice or having evil thoughts. It may just be a plant that's trying to survive, and by doing so is overtaking planets and harming people. But where does that jurisdiction lie? Are they going to kill off just wanton destruction, this whole species, even though it doesn't know that it's doing harm? I don't know. We might be able to see, this might seed what ends up being the downfall of the Jedi, of them saying, oh, we need to protect the Republic. This is a threat to the Republic, even though it's not evil.
That's very true. So just going off of what you were saying, like they can't even, they might even like have to, think about whether or not they're a part of the will. Because, when you're not, obviously the Jedi's fall in the prequel was protecting the Republic and holding that above everything else, whilst, Qui-Gon's like, no, we have to listen to the will of the Force. Like when these things, and when you pointed out their sentience, when these things are like running rampant on the galaxy, how do you as a Jedi just like look at them and be like, well, they're living beings. How do we know? Because they're not Sith, right? When you're Sith, you're a natural enemy. You know that they're using the dark side, but how do you look at this plant-like creature and just be like, I know this is not the will of the Force. This is a disturbance in the Force. We need to act upon it.
Yeah, it's. I'm more excited than I was before now because there's just so many different possibilities. Because, yeah, like I said, we don't know. They could be of the dark side, which makes them a threat. But I do like having them as. This introduces a new kind of faction that's somewhat tertiary, and that's one of the things that Star Wars has always done well, especially in the expanded universe, of being that there's multiple antagonists and they each have their own goals, and some of them are better or worse, and it just adds a lot of variety and extra conflict into the stories, and that's what I love.
Lots of ambiguity too. I mean, for the longest time with the saga films, and especially with the anthology films, we have this, even though there's layers of ambiguity in the conflict, we've always had this kind of line drawn in the sand between the Empire side of things and the Rebel side of things. And, the deeper and deeper you dive into the story of Star Wars, you see the ambiguity, you see the moral moral ambiguity between who is right or wrong, and like innocence on both sides of the spectrum. But now going into the High Republic, we are exiting from this era of Jedi versus Sith, and I know a lot of people are going to like be really, really angry that there's not going to be Sith, although I'm holding my tongue on that judgment because I know for a fact that, well, I don't know for a fact, but I'm guessing that what they're trying to do is ease us into something. Because I don't think, like, when you're announcing something as new as the High Republic, they're going to be like, introducing the High Republic and the main villain's going to be Darth Bane. Like, no, they're not going to say that.
Yeah.
And so I have hope still. But, you know, going back to my main train of thought is that
I don't want Sith in it, by the way, but that's me.
Oh, well, there's a little point of contention. I'd appreciate the stories that they tell with these villains, but I do kind of want them to hint at something in the shadows.
Okay, that I do agree with. I would love that we understand that there is Sith in the background and they are trying to gear up and things for what there's going to come in the future. I don't necessarily want Sith antagonists because it's too close to the Republic, which means that we for sure know how it ends. Yeah. And that everyone that knows about the Sith is going to die and all this stuff. But when I think of a lot of my favorite stories from the EU or Legends, quite a few of them, there are no Sith involved. You know what I mean? If you enjoy, you know, Heir to the Empire, the whole Thrawn trilogy, there's no Sith in there. If you enjoy, I love the book Allegiance, and you know, the Choices of One is a sequel to that. You know, there is also the Join Your Nest, all the stuff with the Yuuzhan Vong. There's quite a few stories that don't have Sith, and they're great stories. So I have faith that they could tell a great story without needing them.
Drengar, the reincarnation of the Rakata. Yeah, so like I don't think we're asking for like an Iron Man 3 situation where it's like, oh, it's the Sith this whole time. But definitely for sure, like if they are going to touch on the Rule of Two saga at any point, there definitely has to be some sprinkles in there, like. Maybe at the end of this High Republic trilogy, like the sizzle scene, like Thanos saying, "Fine, I'll do it myself." It's like two Sith coming out of the cave, and they're like, "It's time for us to like emerge" or something. I don't know. That's something I'd have to think highly about in terms of how they would set it up. But you mentioned multiple antagonists, which is a great segue for the second group of villains that Star Wars released, the Nihil. Truly unlike any villain we've seen in Star Wars before. Let's see. I don't know how you say it. Marchion Ro holds an important post within the Great Nihil organization. He is the Eye of the Nihil. As was his father before him, he doesn't give the orders. That's up to the Tempest Runners. Great name, by the way, but in a very real way, everything revolves around him. And the things that make the Nihil more than just a bunch of Outer Rim raiders all come from Marchion. He's also, in every sense, a bad guy. So, moral ambiguity lessons here. They very clearly said he's a bad guy. And of course, I got a lot of comments about these guys. Are they canonized, you know, homages to Darth Nihilus? Is this, you know, are we going to see his mask somewhere in their like, you know, headquarters that they're just like, you know, worshiping? How do you feel about the Nihil?
So they look cool. I had a discussion with a friend of mine. He hates them, but I like the concept of, I mean, they're basically made them to be kind of like space Vikings, you know, that type of thing. And I'm curious because, you know, this would imply that they have this warrior culture, but this warrior culture, as the article talks about, is warrior culture without honor, right? Yeah. Because a warrior culture like the Vikings wouldn't stoop to poison or gases or biological warfare and stuff like that because it's an honor to face someone in combat. Whereas that doesn't seem to be the case with these guys. It kind of gives me feels for the Reavers from Firefly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I did not know that you watched Firefly. That's good to know.
Of course, love it.
Yeah, as you were saying, the Nile take what they want. If you stand in their way, they will kill you and everyone you love. But even Chaos agents can have goals. So what are those goals? Like, how does the Nile and the Jedi Order and the Republic clash is something that I've been trying to speculate on further. Because if you, like, just from the surface level on paper, obviously what we're reading from this article, they are Sith in that they take what they want, and if you stand in their way, they'll kill you. And of course, agents of chaos. But there's nothing dark side about them. There's no, like, doctrine or the Sith involved. So what do you think their goals are in terms of, like, clashing with the Republic and the Jedi Order?
Ooh, that is a tough one, because I mean, we know that there is something happens. There's this type of accident that is the catalyst to all this stuff. But that's the whole question, is what is this catalyst? You know what I mean? Like, is there some type of device or technology, or maybe they've decided that because we don't see them with kyber crystal or any type of energy weapons here. Maybe that's what they want. They want the secrets of the Jedi in order to improve their own war effort. And if that's what they want, that's what they're going to come try to get.
Interesting.
There's a note in here in this article that they seem to appear out of nowhere. Am I crazy? And I just want to know what that means, because are they also, I don't know, like space ninja Vikings? Because that's terrifying.
They appear out of nowhere. Well, like you said, right? They remind you of the Reavers, and they seemingly appeared out of nowhere most of the time, right? Either plot device or if you happen to wander in their territory. Now, does the Nile have a territory? Are they territorial in the fact that, or in the way that they would have, like, space boundaries where if you wandered into their space, they would just, engage you in that way? Or are they expansive in the sense that they are Viking in that nature? They are expanding their hold over the universe. Because I'd imagine even as their goals kind of go through the Republic and the Jedi Order, you're also dealing with the Drengir, who are also just kind of wreaking havoc across the galaxy. So where do their goals, I guess, align, and where do their goals clash? And would we see the Nile also fighting Drengir? And is this some sort of, like, triple threat match that's happening? And
dear God, I hope so.
The Jedi are fighting both, and then the Nile are everyone's fighting two enemies at the same time.
I mean, it's kind of a cool idea, though. You have the Jedi, which represent order. You have these guys, which are they're chaotic evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they do have some sort of organization, versus the Drengir, which would just be absolute mindless chaos. Just interesting. I mean, being plant-based, they probably do have an affinity for life itself, versus the Nile, who are into poison and gases and stuff. They probably don't. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of having these three meet is going to be really interesting. I'm super excited for it. I already used my credits to pre-order the books for when they come out. So
are you saving your credits just to buy them?
I was initially, but now I have too many credits because the book releases have slowed.
Oh,
So
okay.
now I have like 3 extra credits that I'm just burning a hole in my account. But I don't know. We'll see. See what we do.
Small discussion on Markian or March. How do you say that?
Ooh, I'm not brave enough for pronunciation. I have my money on Markian Row.
It sounds Star Wars-esque, Markian or I can't get behind Martian or Marchion.
Yeah.
So Markian Row, right off the bat, okay, his armor kind of resembles Darth Vader's. He's got the same kind of chest plate into the same like respirator system. So and he's got a red tunic underneath instead of a black one. I'm wondering, like, is this sort of like a hint at something? He looks like a Mandalorian-esque warrior type of archetype villain. Do you see any kind of threat from him besides your typical gunslinger tech gadget person?
Well, I mean, other than that, he mostly I'm looking at the helmet, and there's no way, like we haven't seen weapons that look like his gun. Not really. We haven't seen any helmets that look like his. And so that's what's intriguing me, right? Like they could be this vicious culture that is just highly technologically advanced. And I am wondering if they are the anti-Mandalorians, where the Mandalorians are all based off of honor and do have a strict code. These guys would be in a similar situation, but without that same honor.
That's interesting to think about, especially if you're thinking about a culture or a group that is as technologically advanced, if not more so, than the Mandalorians in terms of, trying to figure out how they could be a threat to the Jedi. Because, at this point, thinking about the Mandalorian Jedi War, how did you fight the Jedi? You needed technologically advanced weapons and shields and armor to combat their very weapons that made them Jedi. And so, he's holding a shotgun here. He doesn't have any other weapons, so like surface level, if you were a Jedi and you saw him, you'd probably just be like, put down your weapon and you won't get hurt. Like, is there any, like, could he be is this chest plate that resembles Darth Vader could just be a nod to perhaps maybe he is Force sensitive? Like, I know we don't want Sith to be an antagonist, but we still kind of maybe hint at Force sensitives that are non-Jedi, non-Sith, right? I mean, isn't that an interesting thing to have?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Looking at his skin tone, right? He's likely not human. Does he have extra abnormal strength or anything like that, or extra durability? We still don't know those types of things. And also, looking at you walk up, you don't want to. The Jedi are going to be like, okay, man, like, we don't want to hurt you, whatever. But he's got Batman's utility belt on.
Oh yeah. So, what's in there?
Anti-Jedi spray, of course.
Man.
But also the big respirator and the mention of gas or whatever that they would use as weapons. What if they are just pumping that stuff out non-stop? You can't get close to them physically without risking yourself,
It's interesting to think about like how these fights would play out. This is why I'm so excited for the High Republic and the idea that there's not going to be this clear 1v1 in terms of concept, in terms of conflict because it's always been Jedi and Sith. It's always been lightsaber versus lightsaber, Force versus Force. How do these villains that we know of, how do these fights play out on the big screen or small screen, if it's Disney Plus or if it's a movie? How?
That's true.
Like, is it just going to be blasters? Like, you raise a great point with the poisons, but I mean,
what if those same poisons or whatever can disrupt or affect a Jedi's ability to use the Force, meaning all of a sudden they're on even playing ground, and this boon that they've always had to just overpower everyone is now gone or even turned against them. I mean, I see lots of possibilities. I try to do some writing myself, as I know you do as well, but
yeah.
So I can just see a lot of interesting ways that, what you want to do is take the Jedi, who are these great, vaunted heroes, and take away the thing that makes them who they are and force them to grow that way. And that's what I'm curious about, is maybe at a certain range, they lose control of their Force abilities because of something, or...
You bring up a good point. Taking away their weapons makes me think about, now the name is escaping me right now, but the Nile could very well be expanding or wreaking havoc on the system in pursuit of the ore that disrupts kyber crystals. I forget the name.
Oh,
but it's like, is it like
crystals or no? No, sorry, I'm thinking.
Is it cortosis?
Yeah, cortosis makes it like feedback and can shut it down.
Like short circuit a lightsaber.
Yeah,
that would be an interesting like introduction to the conflict. Like he's like stand down, and then he takes out like a staff that's made of cortosis, and he's like, and then just my lightsaber, where did it go? And then man, that's crazy. Wow. Okay, so the High Republic. Any final thoughts on what you would like to see from this? I know we have like a book coming out called High Republic Adventures with Yoda. Mm-hmm. Any other final thoughts on what you'd like to see?
So what I really want to see and focus on is I want a better understanding of the Jedi Order itself in its prime. Mm-hmm. Right? This is its prime. What we saw in the prequels was its decline. So what does that mean? This is going to be the first time we see what a Jedi is truly supposed to be doing. Yeah. Potentially. Some missions where they're like secret agent type missions, probably going around trying to disrupt drug rings and free people and do that sort of thing. Because that's what they've been doing for hundreds of years, More
like Obi-Wan with Racco Hardeen being like the subterfuge. Yeah, I mean, like the High Republic obviously takes place 232 BBY around that time, and then Yoda is, I think, 600 something.
Spry, young guy, huh?
Yeah, young for that age, I guess. Because I'm trying to do the 1-to-1 conversion. He became Jedi Master at 100, which means if it's a 1-to-1 conversion to human years, he literally became a master at 10 years old. But of course, that's not really the case. My biggest, I guess, want, because Yoda, man, I really just want to see Yoda in his prime. Like, before he becomes this kind of not stoic, before he becomes this kind of sage mentor who speaks in abstract concepts, like I really want him to just go to town and go hands-on, be the guy that's teaching. Like, thousands of Jedi have I trained over the years. I want him to be teaching thousands of Jedi and like teaching the duelists, because he's taught he's taught a lot of Jedi lightsaber combat. And that's one of his like claims to fame, I guess. So yeah, a lot of like new stuff with Yoda being young, being active, and not having to deal with the cloud of the dark side from Palpatine, and just being a Grandmaster. Is he a Grandmaster by this time?
I mean, I don't think we know yet. One other thing though that I do want to see is, I know I want new characters, but is Plo Koon alive? In Legends, he was a few hundred years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, isn't he over 200?
In Legends, I want to say he was like 350 or something like that, which would put him alive at this time period.
Alive, but would he be?
Would it be young? Would he be a larva? Would it be like a metapod?
That would be awesome if we saw like his Ahsoka Tano version of him coming into the temple. It's like,
yeah,
you know, he meets Yoda and he's like, young are you, much to learn. And Plo Koon is like, yeah, I guess. I look forward to you teaching me. Man, that's awesome. I would love to see a lot of like a lot of those characters that are multiple centuries old kind of make a cameo in that sense. Like, obviously we can't make the series about them.
Yeah.
And the series isn't going to be about Yoda either. We have our main character, presumably the female on the cover of Light of the Jedi. But we still have a lot of Jedi as they've been releasing like sneak peeks at some of these characters. We've got a Wookiee Jedi. I do believe, I think it's a Basilisk. I do believe we have a Jedi that looks like Saba 17.
Yes. Yeah.
I know you're excited about that.
Yes.
Do you think that's Saba, or you think that's just like a Basilisk?
I want to say it'll just be a random Basilisk, but that's because I'm still thinking in George Lucas terms, where he wouldn't. But Disney is the one that's actually bringing elements and characters from Legends into canon. So it is possible. It is possible.
You know, a lot of people say that, like in the comment section, or when you have someone or a detractor of Disney, is that they like to use the clip a lot of Kathleen Kennedy saying like, we don't have thousands of pages of source material, and they're like, oh, she's like, yeah, exactly. Like they're literally using that as fuel to say that Disney threw out, you know, EU. But again, in context, she's talking about there's not 1,000 pages of source material for George Lucas canon. You know, a lot of these stories are from other writers that George Lucas didn't, you know, consider canon. This was like, you guys have fun with that, and we'll do our own thing.
Yeah, I mean, if it went through Disney licensing, it was licensed out. To be honest, I don't even know quite how the ownership of those characters even works. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Yes, we got Thrawn in, but which also brought in the Nogri and Rook. But that's because they brought Timothy Zahn on board. I don't know how all that works, but we go back to now that we have the Mandalorian out and we got to see, you know, Boba Fett. People are questioning about whether or not he is truly a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Now there was a whole Legends backstory, he had a name and all that stuff. George Lucas threw that out when he made the prequels.
Yeah.
Then there was additional stories that they created, and George Lucas threw it out again. If you look at what he was planning, what George Lucas was planning for the sequel trilogy, his treatment that he wrote, that also disregarded all of the EU.
Yeah.
So
he still had Luke as a hermit training the girl. And it's funny that you bring that up, because a lot of times you'll get the comments saying this is not what George Lucas wanted. And a lot of those comments are in direct contradiction to what George Lucas wanted.
And another thing I constantly hear is about how it's Disney, or it's Disney's fault. I feel like a lot of the same people love the Mandalorian, and I'm like, that's Disney Star Wars, and they say no, that's not Disney Star Wars. That's
Filoni.
Jon Favreau. And I'm like, Jon Favreau is Disney.
Yeah,
he just
did Lion King,
Jungle Book 2, all the stuff he's done in the MCU, with the exception of the first Iron Man, which was Universal, I believe. Jon Favreau is Disney, so I don't know. It's a weird. It's weird mental gymnastics, I think, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they're jumping through hoops to kind of, latch onto this narrative. Obviously, what we're seeing right now is a mix of Disney and Filoniverse, obviously, right? I think George Lucas is still kind of in the back saying like, oh, this is pretty cool, you should do this or that. He's obviously not giving them outlines and ideas and concepts that he used to do, but I think we can all trust in Filoni to kind of like take the reins on this one.
Absolutely.
But going off of what you said, because you're the king of segues, we are going to talk about our second topic of this episode, The Mandalorian. It came back last week with a huge bang. Like, this was like feature length, like theater film, like production.
It was
like,
excellent.
I was watching it. I was like, this is beautiful.
What's the budget?
Exactly. Well, see, when you watch the gallery, right, you're thinking, and you're watching all of the things that's possible with volume, and how it all looks on that like wall of LEDs. And you're just like, wow, that's going to really change the way things look in the show, and give it that high production value look without having to be in like a huge, you don't have to be in the desert, to film on Tatooine. And I don't know if they did go back to the desert to film the
Tunisia.
Yeah, Tunisia. I don't think they went back there. I think that was all. I think everything that's filmed on The Mandalorian is on the volume set. And then when you watch the episode 1, chapter 9, everything looks so beautiful. Just, it's a movie. Yeah. And it's the longest episode that we got. What do you think? Okay, a lot of people talk to me about, could that be Rex?
Sorry. I don't mean to laugh at them. Laughs derisively at them. Yeah, it's being one of these people like you who picks up on all the small details. A lot of people have forgotten that either they've forgotten that the clones aged faster intentionally, or they've forgotten that Boba Fett was an unaltered clone. So if he was Rex, he looks great, because 5 years ago at the Battle of Endor, he was looking old as hell. But
he took a razor to his beard.
But yeah, it's definitely Boba.
Yeah, I mean, I also make the argument that, like, from a narrative standpoint, Din is speeding away with Boba's armor. There's like no narrative behind why you would tease Rex in that moment. It's like, okay, we have Tamura Morrison. We just had Boba Fett's armor in the last frame.
And he's on Tatooine, the last place that we saw him, a place we've never seen Rex.
I think Rex is with the Ghost Crew right now. I'm like in the timing of Mandalorian, he's still kind of like chilling with Chopper and stuff, just celebrating Endor. But so now we have Cobb Vanth finally on the big screen. We had a big crate dragon, and then in that scene, this is also a huge talking point in my comments, and I don't know if you've had the same comments about the crate dragon pearl that the Tusken Raiders picked up from the corpse. And a lot of people are saying that this has something to do with the Darksaber. how it was made, but and I want to get your thoughts on it. But canonically, like the Darksaber is made of a kyber crystal. It's just a very rare one, and it isn't described, at least in our reference notes, as being made from a Krayt Dragon Pearl. So like, what do you think? Where do you think that Krayt Dragon Pearl lies in the narrative?
Because of the Tusken Raiders' attitude towards it, which also I love that we gave them their due and didn't just make them mindless animals. You know what I mean? But
I saw the articles saying like, oh, that episode of Mandalorian makes Anakin look even worse for doing what he did. And I was like, that's true.
Yeah. As far as the Krayt Dragon Pearl, I wonder if it's more of a religious rite to these people, right? Because traditionally, whenever there is a creature that is the devourer of your people, and you're actually physically going there and giving them your mounts, that's like an offering to them. I can see it being deified, and I can see it being more of a religious item than anything else. They don't seem to want to purchase things. I've never seen, Tusken Raiders going into a grocery store or whatever. So I don't know that they would be looking to sell it. But
well, they're called Tusken Raiders because they raid.
I thought they played WoW a lot or something, but
Mythics.
You could also potentially have a situation where, because a pearl starts as something that creates irritation, what if that is a kyber crystal at the center of the pearl? I don't know. But if anything, I would want the Darksaber to come from a pearl from a mythosaur. You know what I mean? Like, that would thematically be more appropriate. Are Krayt Dragons on Mandalore? Would Tar Vizsla have run into a Krayt Dragon? I don't know. It's possible. It's just seems random.
But that would be awesome if it came from a mythosaur, the Darksaber, and that's how Tar Vizsla got it to begin with.
And in that situation, if Tar Vizsla was able to take down a Krayt Dragon, I mean, he's being a Mandalorian who's also force sensitive, that would also be just incredible, because that would be why the Mandalorians look to the symbol of the mythosaur for the entire group of Mandalorians as the apex. Where
do we see Tar Vizsla? Like in a flashback setting?
I was going to say, maybe in the High Republic?
No, not in the High Republic.
But he's older than that, so.
Yeah, so like canonically right now, his existence dates beyond 5,000. Yeah. So he's like before even the Old Republic in canon. So like, but this is the Mandalorian. How do we not have sprinkles of Mandalorian culture, flashbacks of Mandalore in its prime? The lore that we've gotten so far from the Armorer, the stuff about covenants and their creed about the helmets as they are now after the purge, because I know we get a lot of questions about why are they taking off their helmets.
So many questions.
So if you have that question on this podcast, the creed is a result of the covenants after the purge. It has nothing to do with the Mandalorians before then, so they freely took off their helmets. And like, speaking of Mandalorians, can't we expect a flashback of like Golden Age Mandalore, Tar Vizsla?
I hope that we will get some of that just later, right? Because we know that this adventure he's trying to get the child back to his people. And what were they considering his people? Well, they were considering force sensitives or to be his people. Now, obviously, our mind goes to Jedi. That's never stated. I think you might give him to a Sith or We don't know. Does he know the difference? I don't know.
I don't think Din does.
Yeah, Din, these force sensitive people, are they enemies of ours, or whatever? Giving him to an enemy wizard essentially, and so I know. I mean, there's a lot you can play with there, but since Din doesn't seem to fully know the history, we might be able to be uncovering it through his eyes. With, I don't know if he's going to find writings or find an old Mandalorian sage. I do believe he is going to find another group of Mandalorians starting next week.
That early? You think that early?
Yes, I do.
Interesting. Now it's a great angle too, because of course the armorer does say there once was a great war between the Mandalorians and a group of sorcerers named the Jedi. And then you bring up a great point. Does Din know the difference between a Jedi and a Sith, or just a regular Force user? Would he know the difference between a Jedi and a Night Sister? I know they're not necessarily kind of prevalent in that time, but it's interesting because, like, from that angle of him tracking down Jedi or tracking down sorcerers who are Force sensitive, and then knowing that we have this kind of looming specter of the Darksaber with Moff Gideon, I kind of feel like later on down the line we will see him. Now this is a theory that I have when people ask about the Krayt Dragon Pearl. I think Moff Gideon is going to be the big bad with the Darksaber, but I also think that through his learnings of the Mandalorian history, he's going to, research about the Darksaber, its history, its past, its provenance, and he's going to learn about Tar Vizsla, how he constructed it, and he's going to go back and get that Krayt Dragon Pearl and make his own saber. And it's going to be Moff Gideon versus Din Djarin, Darksaber versus Baby Yoda saber.
Interesting. And what color would his blade be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Nice deflection. I mean, if it's good, I mean, okay, so the easy way out of that question obviously is the Darksaber is black and will have like a purified white, because like the Krayt Dragon Pearl we saw in the episode, I think was shining like white, or was that like an off-white?
It looked off-white, but like it had some swirlies in there. I know. I would love. I'm also a big Corran Horn fan, so I'd hope for a silver blade. But would that be too much silver with his armor? Or if they gave us yellow, that would blow people's minds, because they're like, "Is that what Rey got?" And like, people would go nuts.
More theory videos abound. Where does Rey get hers? Oh, it's a Krayt Dragon Pearl Kyber crystal from Din Djarin. Din Djarin was alive during the Rise of Skywalker.
Left it on Tatooine, where she went and built it, and then dropped off hers.
She was building it on her bench. He just happened to stop by. He was like, "Yo, I got this Krayt Dragon Pearl. I heard you were fighting the Emperor, so here you go." So, what do you think? Do you think Moff Gideon's a big bad? Do you think they're gonna do something with Boba Fett? Are they gonna align?
So I do think Moff Gideon is the big bad, but he's a big bad in the sense that he represents the Empire. And more specifically, the Empire's oppression of Mandalore. But this being Star Wars, I have to assume that we're going to end up with multiple antagonists. I want to see him as a big bad representing the Empire. I also want whatever group of Mandalorians he's going to run into to turn out not to be as honorable as the coven he grew up in. Or covert.
Interesting.
Sorry. I want him to show up there, and he's used to this honor and this tradition and all this stuff, and these people don't do that, and they're terrible, and that makes him have to have some sort of conflict within himself, within his own customs and how he feels about Mandalorians. So I think he's going to show up there, and he's going to give them the armor that he got from Boba Fett, but end up deciding that they don't deserve it. And in this conflict, he's going to need help. He's going to go pick up Cobb Vanth. He's going to give the armor back to Cobb Vanth and tell him, you have the heart of a Mandalorian. Like, you're an honorable man. And so he's going to give it to him. So he's going to be fighting Moff Gideon, representation of the Empire, this group of Mandos, which is the Mandos, who are going to be antagonists to him, but aligned in their fight against Moff Gideon. And then I'm calling Boba Fett as the antagonist for season 3.
Ooh. Okay, well, I like the Cobb Vanth angle. Kind of like an honorary degree, right? He becomes like a semi-foundling by Din Djarin standards. Wow, Boba Fett. Okay, so like obviously I asked you, what do you think Boba Fett's going to do? Like, you think he's going to be antagonistic to Din Djarin?
Not initially, but these are my wild speculations.
I mean, I think there's possibility for. I mean, it might just be fan service at this point, but there's possibility that the honorary degree goes to Boba Fett. And Boba Fett helping Din Djarin, and that might just be like the olive branch that Lucasfilm kind of extends to the fans who want Boba Fett to be a Mandalorian. Of course, now, how do I feel about that personally? I don't want Boba Fett to be a Mandalorian. he's a bounty hunter through and through. He's a clone of Jango. I'm in agreement with George.
I mean, but that's part of what I want. I want Mando to give the armor to Cobb Vanth. After the altercation, Cobb Vanth goes home, walks into the bar where we first met him. Boba Fett's sitting at the bar, pulls out a blaster and said, "That belongs to me." And then fade to black. That's the end of the season.
Okay. You said fade to black. That you saved it because I thought you, like, right away you were going to spoiler it, and then Cobb Vanth is dead. He gets killed by Boba Fett.
But I also I want to believe that Boba Fett is running his own bounty hunter guild that's separate from the main guild, and he's only doing really high, really elite people, and that's what Ming-Na Wen's character on Tatooine was, right? Because she was awesome. She was meeting a contact. Who was that contact?
Absolutely,
it was Boba Fett.
We know now that that was Boba Fett. That was at the end of Gunslinger.
I absolutely believe it, and then that was they say that it was the same exact sound that was used. It was not directly confirmed in canon, but I do believe it was him. I also still have to point to the fact that in season 1, IG-11 had a different mission than Din.
Right.
IG's mission was to kill the child. Why was it different? I don't think he came from the guild. I think he was sent there from Boba Fett and whatever his thing is. And I also believe that Boba, at the end of the episode, had been essentially disguised as a Tusken Raider to observe Din. And he's going to try to get Din to join whatever his organization is. But it's going to come out of conflict because Boba Fett hates Force sensitives.
Ooh, interesting. Yo, I never thought about that, though. The IG-11? Because
who sent him?
Yeah, because all the pucks for the target, right, wanted them to retrieve it and bring it back to the Empire. Ooh, yeah. Who ordered the elimination of Baby Yoda? That's interesting.
I assume someone that hates Force sensitive people. I don't know. Maybe Jedi killed his father.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome theory. For me personally, like the Mandalorians that he's kind of slated to meet, I'm obviously hoping it's going to be Bo-Katan and Sabine, because I know you probably think that's a little bit generic, but we have to see Bo-Katan's side of things. Like, we can't just leave it, she just lost the Darksaber, because people, you have to lose it, right?
she left it on a bus, and
Yeah. You have to lose it in a duel, right? That's the whole shtick around Darksaber.
But normally the person who loses it doesn't live long past that. But I don't know. I would love to see Katie Sackhoff in there as well, because I'm a big fan.
Well, it could turn out that, like, of course, with the purge and everyone going into hiding in Covenants, that Bo-Katan did lose it somehow, right? And she's in hiding on Trask, right? Like, Manda or Din is on his way to Trask to see these Mandalorians that Frog Lady said her husband saw. So, obviously, like, the fan in me wants to see Sabine and Bo-Katan and kind of just bring that story full circle. And of course, we do have to address the rumors that Ahsoka has been confirmed, seemingly by Disney Brazil or Disney, like the Instagram account for a foreign Disney social account. They posted something about Ahsoka Tano, and they're like featuring Rosario Dawson, and then they like deleted it. So I don't know, like, if I want to give that credence at all.
I can't. I can't do it myself. I do believe she'll be in it. I do. Make an appearance for an episode, but I don't know. I just don't know. But that's one of the reasons her relationship with Sabine is actually why I don't believe Sasha Banks is going to play Sabine.
Right. You talked about this earlier. I said I was going to take you to task on that. Like, so, okay, if it ain't Sabine, who could it be?
So I think the obvious comparison is made because if you look at Sasha Banks, her hair is always wildly colored.
Yeah. It's the easy comparison to make.
I do think she's a Mando, considering where they got her from, right? From wrestling. I could just see her just being another tough female. I know Gina Carano isn't a Mandalorian, but she's a fighter. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it because I have to believe that they are still
they're still looking for Ezra.
They're still looking. I don't want Sabine to leave Ahsoka's side until they find Ezra. And I think that Sasha Banks' character is going to be more prevalent in the series.
Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities as to who Sasha Banks could play, but be careful what you wish for, because The Mandalorian takes place 5 years after Endor. And I believe Sabine goes off with Ahsoka at the end of Rebels right after Endor. So 5 years have passed. Mm-hmm. Are we going to see Sabine and Ahsoka and Ezra show up and be like, we found him, like, here he is, who is that you're holding? And then Din's like, oh, this is the child, I call him Bob or something like that. You never know, right? So we had Rahul Cooley, who posted on social media this kind of teaser photo of him looking like old man Ezra with the beard. This screams to me how Ewan McGregor for like how many years was like, no, I'm not talking to anybody. We're not doing this Obi-Wan series. I haven't spoken to anybody. Lucasfilm hasn't sent me anything. I have not signed anything. And then, like, D23 comes around and he's like, I'm playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so, like, as much as he's denying this tease, and as much as I want to say, yep, he's just a huge fan of Star Wars. He was just posting a picture of Ezra. What are the chances that he actually, like, screwed up and was like, I'm probably going to be teased in The Mandalorian at some point. Like, they found me.
I can't, because he toyed with people for a little bit, and I just...
Isn't that the marketing ploy these days?
This is true. It's true.
Tom Holland, right? He just goes on now that with scripted bits of him spoiling things.
Yeah, I don't. We'll see. I mean, as you know, I'm a huge fan of Rebels, so I can't speak freely on this because of my own personal heavy bias. I try not to, but I mean, you're absolutely right. If there's 5 years, I still want a Rebel show,
a Rebel
sequel, and I want to find out what happened to him. And I feel like if Sabine shows up, that means that is resolved. So what happened? Tell us what happened. And if she shows up and Ahsoka shows up and they don't tell us what happened, I'm going to be pissed off.
Yeah, but the good thing is this is a long form storytelling that we're dealing with, right? This isn't a trilogy. This isn't like we're not going to run into the problem that we don't have the chance to tell this story. And it's definitely going, I think, see now, because we run into the trades again, rumoring spin-offs with Ahsoka. So I'm wondering if her cameo and her role in The Mandalorian, given, you know, a lot of people are saying we don't want her to take away from Din, then the only way that could be is like to have her additive to the story where like the resolution of The Mandalorian is her taking on the child in some way, shape, or form. And her spinoff is the story of her, Sabine, searching for Ezra and those kind of quests, the in-betweens leading up to that and what happened. I don't know. Do you think the Ahsoka spinoff, if that's happening, in fact, would just be about E.K. Johnson's book, or is it going to tie into The Mandalorian in any way?
But that is one of the reasons why I would only want her in one episode. And one of the things I think they might be doing is this is a backdoor pilot. Mm-hmm. It's like that one random episode of The Office that was all about Dwight on the farm. That was a backdoor pilot. Everyone hated it, but they wanted to see what the response was. Here's the thing. If we get a live action Ahsoka show, do you think that's going to ruin people's interest in The Mandalorian continuing?
I don't know. I would say, but they do need something Star Wars-esque, right, throughout the seasons. Like Mando is like the October season through to spring, and then Ahsoka is spring, and then Obi-Wan is summer. Tatooine, you know, representing all the seasons.
Okay, like the Marvel Netflix series was doing. So you got something new every 6 months.
You got to keep people subscribed, man.
It's possible. I would like to see their exploration outside of the system, right? So going through the chaos and then running into the Chiss Ascendancy, maybe the Grisk out there. We also have found out that that's the origin place of the Sith, and that the Chiss Ascendancy was at war with the Sith at one point in time. Like, what? I need some information on that.
We need a Thrawn TV show now.
Yeah, I mean, but who knows? I mean, maybe Ezra and Thrawn, settle down together. So somewhere out there.
This is going to be like the Gilmore Girls of the Star Wars universe. Oh, man. Mandalorian, Season 2, Chapter 10 just came out. Next week, Chapter 11. Any kind of like speculation as to, you say that next week he's going to meet the Mandalorians for the first time. Are they going to be current Mandalorians? Now, I say that it's going to be Bo-Katan or some kind of character we know. But what do you think? Like he's going to meet?
He is going to meet Sasha Banks. He's going to meet her. So we shall find out very soon what who she is.
Is that Mon Cala?
Where they are?
Were they on Mon Cala in that harbor scene with the Corrins? Because I know we speculated that in the trailers, but yeah. So you think we're going to meet Sasha Banks next week?
Yes.
Are we going to see her and do that? She's going to do that whole disappearing act, or are we going to meet her and she's going to be introduced like her by name?
We're gonna. Okay. I'm gonna put down $20 right now, saying that we're gonna meet her by name.
Okay. So that means I would have to put $20 down on meeting Bo-Katan.
Let's do it.
All right. First ever Dyad in the Force podcast gamble or bet $20 next week, Bo-Katan or Sasha Banks' character. That will wrap up this episode of A Dyad in the Force. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Darth Choco, for joining me. This will be a weekly thing. You know, we're going to post every Sunday and leave your questions and comments in the comment section, and then we can address that in the next episode. I'm thinking about live streaming this, so we'll see. If you want me to live stream this podcast, feel free to leave that in the comment section down below so that I can see it and make that decision.
I did hear some complaints about the recent episode of The Mandalorian being not as captivating as the first one, but of course, how are you going to follow that first episode? A, and B, I wonder if there is some budgetary things, like the budget of the first one affected what they could do with the next one. I don't know. Yeah. I still enjoyed it, and I'm along for the ride, and I'm happy that it's going places. Right, it's following suit from last season, so I'm excited to talking about this more with everyone.
Cool. Yeah, I enjoyed it. We can't have two blockbuster episodes back to back, right? They had to make the Simmer episode, and then next week is obviously going to be the narrative plot builder episode, and then the week after that, I think maybe we are owed a blockbuster episode. I don't want to sound too entitled, but in any case, guys, I am Element 7. My co-host Darth Choco. You can find us on our socials down below in the screen here. Give Darth Choco a follow. Follow him on Twitch. He does have his High Ground podcast every Wednesday on Twitch. But yeah, that'll do it for this podcast. May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.